What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again with another Tottenham update for you guys on this sunny Sunday afternoon. I'm here with Ashmatic to talk about everything that's surrounding Tottenham over the last 24 hours and the way things are going with Spurs. There is a lot of news pretty much daily with everything up in the air. Spurs really need to get that act together. But unfortunately, there might have been a setback to the uncertainty. If we wanted more certainty, there's a setback to that because Sammy Mockbell has now reported that Real Madrid are set to test Harry Kane's resolve to become the Premier League's greatest ever goal-scoring record as they are plotting a £100 million route for the striker. Sources indicate that Tottenham, according to Gary Jacobs, still saying Mockbell, sources have indicated that Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy will quote Madrid a minimum starting price of 100 million for Kane once inquiry lands. There is, though, believed to be room to negotiate heading into the summer transfer window. Levy is adamant he does not want to sell his club's prized asset to a domestic rival. Gary Jacobs says Real Madrid are ready to turn their attention to Harry Kane. They are hoping to take advantage of his desire to leave Tottenham in search of silverware. Miguel Delaney of The Independent says that Daniel Levy will want at least £200 million to sell Harry Kane to Real Madrid. J. Felix Diaz of Marca says Harry Kane wants the Madrid move and that Real Madrid have already contacted Tottenham over a potential and Kane's representatives over a potential transfer. Relevu is a publication in Spain. They say that with Karim Benzema's departure from Real Madrid, Madrid will now push for Harry Kane. And according to El Chigrito, which is a kind of Real Madrid publication, they said that Florentino Perez and Jose Angel Sanchez are in agreement to go for Kane, but they are they agree that it will be a very difficult transfer to get him out of Tottenham. Obviously, Madrid have announced this morning there was a bit of uncertainty over Benzema's future. There were rumors a few days ago he was going to leave. There was cold water poured on those rumors as it is a couple of days ago, saying that he's staying at Madrid. But Madrid confirmed in a statement this morning that Karim Benzema is set to leave Real Madrid this summer, which will leave a space for Real Madrid in the striking department. Harry Kane, we know he looks up to Cristiano Ronaldo a lot, and he obviously when he was at Madrid, he was probably a massive hero of his, and he said that how much he admires Ronaldo and how with his longevity. So will he want to take a crack at a massive club like Real Madrid, or will the pull of being the Premier League's all-time top goal scorer be too much for him to avoid going to Europe and want to stay domestically, whether that be at Tottenham or another club? I, for one, wouldn't be surprised if the Madrid move does come about. He actually goes for it. I know people will be saying, look, the Premier League goal scoring record is important to him, and I'm sure it is. But you've got to remember, he's still he's going to be 30 in the summer. I still think he's got many years at the top. He could spend a couple of years in Madrid and then come back to the Premier League and still break the record. And at the end of the day, what's important is trophies, things that you can't take away from him. You can get the Premier League record, and maybe in 5 years' time, Haaland will break it. You never know. And I'm sure he's not going to be thinking like that. But for me, I wouldn't be surprised if Madrid come, then he actually might be tempted by it. But Ash, do you think it's realistic, this Madrid deal?
I said it before in the last update to Ben that I think in football anything's possible. And I said to him at the time that I thought he could possibly go to Real Madrid. And, the actual, I think, belief was he has a family and family comes first, family matters. And I do appreciate that. But in terms of being a professional footballer, looking at it as a job, when you get that opportunity, there's a very few opportunities you turn down. And I think Real Madrid's not one of them. I think if Real Madrid come knocking, you go. Especially the way the season's ended and our uncertainty with our director of football, our management situation, and us not finishing in Europe at all. He was quoted about saying, he wouldn't turn his nose up at the Conference League, and he would try to go for it. So that just shows somewhat of his ambitions for trophies, in my opinion. And so if it's an opportunity to become the all-time record goal scorer in the Premier League versus going to Real Madrid and becoming potentially a Ballon d'Or winner, not to mention, Champions League cups or Spanish cups or even League cups, the opportunity there is greater. climate is different, life is different. But as you said, how many seasons does he stay there? Can he really make a big name for himself on the world stage? At the moment, there's always the question: is Harry Kane better than Haaland? Is Harry Kane the elite of the elite? Whilst he's at Tottenham, people will always have his doubts. But I'm just talking about as a job or as a professional. I think there must be a part of him saying, "Oh, if I turn down this Real Madrid job and I just stay at Tottenham, who's my boyhood club, who I love, do I stay there for another season and then try to walk for free, and then that job offer that I was going for is no longer available? Will I kick myself, when I'm trying to show my kids the medals and trophies and what I could have achieved?" Do you know what I mean? So that's how I personally look at it. I know some people think maybe, that he's a lot closer to that goal scoring record now than he was a couple of years ago, because he did say that, individual accolades are important, but not as important as actual trophies. I misquote the quote, but it was something around that. He said how, trophies are more important to him than individual accolades, because at the end of the day, it's a team game and he wants to be known as an all-time great.
Yeah, and he obviously is going to need those trophies. And I honestly think when it comes to the whole moving abroad thing, I understand the argument when it comes to PSG or Bayern Munich that I don't think that's a realistic club for him to be at. 'Cause I think those leagues, as much as look, they're good quality, and I'm not saying it's like that easy to win, but I don't think he can look back and say I won the Bundesliga with Bayern or the Liga with PSG with as much pride as he could say I won the Liga with Real Madrid. I think I think you can look back in that, and that's a proper achievement. I know maybe people will say I'm shitting on the Bundesliga and Liga a bit, but at the end of the day, Bayern and PSG have won the league every year for the last 10 years. At least in La Liga, it's a bit of a challenge. Barca have just won it. Atletico won it the year before. Madrid don't win it every year as much as they're always in the title conversation. So it's not a foregone conclusion they win the title. So to say he earned a title with Real Madrid is a massive achievement. Obviously, Champions League, if he can get to finals and stuff and make a difference, that'll be massive. So I actually think there's more legs to move to Madrid than maybe other foreign moves as well, given that as well they're the biggest club in the world. I guess stumbling blocks have been money-wise. Do we see Madrid paying up to 100 million for a player who's got 1 year left with his contract? They have got previous for it. They did it with Eden Hazard, but that transfer didn't turn out very well. So maybe they'll think, we don't want to do that again. But in terms of the money, do you think Tottenham might well accept a reduced fee if Kane wants to go to Madrid? And if that's a possibility, maybe a deal could be done for a bit of a lesser fee, seeing as we're desperate for him not to go for a domestic rival.
It's a tough one because I still think that Levy sees him as the main asset at the club, and his financial wealth is way more worth than 100 million. And so you can see that we did a mural for him recently. I think merchandise, commercially, he does a lot for the club. He actually helps to attract other players as well. Even managers want to work with him because you've got like a world-class player at the club. So I think in those terms, the club will be really assessing if, it's worth letting him go and losing all of that value, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. So I do take that into consideration. But then at the same time, they must be weighing up the fact that, you keep him for one more season, and we could offer him some more money, but he can get more money at Real Madrid. Like if you look at Eden Hazard, he's on about 350,000 a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Kane could command the same amount, if not more. So whatever Spurs offer, I think Real Madrid could match. And then I think on top of it, I think if we look at like when Real Madrid really want to play, and I think Ancelotti's seen him in flesh, he's seen him in person. I think that's the guy that he wants. He said, like, I really want this guy. Kane in the team that finished 8th with very limited chances managed to rack 30 goals. Imagine him at a Real Madrid where he's got like Valverde behind him, he's got Cruz behind him, he's got Luka Modric. Like the names just go on, Rodrigo, Junior, Vinicius Junior. Like, it's going to be a and the league's a lot slower as well for him. More technical. He's got technical ability. So, but in terms of Tottenham, sorry, I'm kind of going off the point here. In terms of Tottenham, would they do business? I think they would try very hard to hang on to him. But I think ultimately, if Kane wants to push for the move, they're going to have to really assess the situation and think, you know what, we might just have to kind of, just cash in on it because, yeah, we don't want him to down tools like what we saw, what happened to Man City, where you've got a striker that's unhappy. And we've had previous with Berbatov and other players just being unhappy and trying to force him. And then it comes to, exactly. And then it comes to January now and you've got a player that's unhappy and then Real Madrid come back in again. Like, you could have had a bigger fee. So I think they're weighing that up.
Do you think we'd rather sell like this summer to Madrid for 70 or keep him a year and let him go to United on a free?
I think this is a big question. I think Daniel Levy doesn't want to sell to a rival. He doesn't want him to go to a rival. So I think that has got some legs, like you were saying to. I think that has got a factor. So, I said it to a few people. Do you let Kane go on a free or do you collect the money now? Do you know what I mean?
I think, honestly, in my personal opinion, if it's to Madrid, if it's not to a domestic rival, and he really wants to go, I think you have to let him go. That's just my personal opinion. As much as it'll hurt, and as much as we need him, I think it's better to kind of rip off the Band-Aid now, get some money for him, and just start the rebuild rather than go through this whole uncertainty and go through this whole thing where he could go to a rival. I mean, we could try and convince him to sign, but I just don't think it's realistic, especially if someone like Postecoglu is coming in. As much as I think he's a manager who I'm sure the fans can fall in love with, and I'm sure that the players can get behind him, is he going to be the manager to convince Kane to sign a contract? I don't think so, in my opinion. So, like, if you're talking about someone who could maybe have that world-class ability, like a Nagelsmann, I think he has more of a chance of maybe convincing Kane to sign if Kane can see what he's doing. I think Postecoglu is more going to be about just getting a good vibe back in Tottenham, getting us playing well again. I don't think he's going to be much about really competing for big trophies in the short term, unlike someone like a Nagelsmann. So I think that with Postecoglu, he's the favourite at the moment. If he's the one, I think you just have to let Kane go to Madrid, in my opinion. I think it just makes sense. You get the money, Kane gets his big move, he doesn't go to a rival. I think it's the best of a shitty situation, in my opinion.
And also, just to add to that, I think Ancelotti has more of that star quality. Obviously, Real Madrid's a massive pool, but I was listening to I can't remember his name, from Everton, talk about Ancelotti, how he just had that kind of aura about him. It was a guy who used to play for Arsenal. I forget his name. Awobi started talking about Ancelotti. He was like, wow, when he came in, like the presence was crazy. And obviously when he was there, Everton were doing somewhat much better than they did last season. But yeah, going back onto star quality and just having that pull, I think Ancelotti might have that pull as well. That might be another factor for Kane. As I said, compared to Postecoglu, no disrespect to him, he's done great things in the world of football, but just not at that European, that high level domestically.
I'm sure he'd get all Postecoglu. I just don't see him being like, okay, we're gonna win everything under him, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of feeling he needs to have to stay, in my opinion. And obviously, you could argue no manager could give him that feeling, and that's a fair argument. But it's going to look. I just think this, like, I was just reading the stories, and as much as people say, look, he's so close to the Premier League record, he's surely not going to leave now. I actually think this one has legs. I really do. I think it just makes sense from everyone's point of view, in my opinion. Do you really see the Premier League record being that much of a hold on him that he would reject a move to Madrid over
I not like me, from what I've read in the past. I know he's a lot closer to the record now, but like I said before, he's always got a chance to come back. So if he can do the 2-3 stint at Madrid, 3 years, like let's say 3 years, he's done. He's 33. And then he could come back, and try to complete that. But at the end of the day, would you rather have a Ballon d'Or and a Champions League medal or the Liga title or like any title or a cup, because he's had none, versus just being known for the all-time record breaker?
Yeah, and it's a great point you make in terms of him coming back, because like you could say, oh, he's 30. Could he really come back? If you look at the best strikers right now in world football, you've got Benzema, who I know he's about to go to Saudi Arabia, but he's a year out from winning the Ballon d'Or, and he's 34 years of age. You've got Lewandowski, who's still bagging them in for Barcelona, 20 goals a season minimum. He's 34 as well, getting on 35. Messi just won a World Cup at 35, winning player of the tournament. Ronaldo, I know he's in Saudi Arabia now, but a year ago he was banging 18 league goals for Man United at 37 years of age. So there is no reason why Kane couldn't go to Madrid for 2 or 3 years and come back as a 33-year-old and still have at least another 3 years at the top of his game.
He strikes me as a player that wants to always improve. Like people always talk about he's a mentality monster. I don't know if you saw that interview with Tim Sherwood, sorry. And he was just talking about how like Kane was just different in terms of his application, his hard work, his mentality. I think that's what separates him from the rest. Like he really wants to be the best. And I think at Madrid, he could become another level or a different version of himself by playing around world-class players, elite players, playing with your Modric's and, like I said, the Vinicius Juniors of this world. And he's going to have way more opportunity to score way more goals at that club and then go on to win major honours, as much as it pains me, because I don't think we can replace him. As many players as we get in, I think he's an irreplaceable player. You've seen it before with when we lost top players, we never replaced them. At Berbatov, when we lost them, Modric, when we lost them, Bale. So many players we never replaced. Ericsson, as recent, Moussa Dembele. We haven't replaced. Kyle Walker, took ages, So I think Kane, if we lose him, would be devastating for any Spurs fan.
I also think from Kane's point of view, he saw how the City deal there was a window there. Once he missed the window, that was gone. Haaland came in, and now they're not going to be looking for a striker for a while. Same probably is going to be for Madrid if he doesn't sign this summer, and they have to replace Benzema with someone else. Who knows when that window is going to open again for him? So I do think now's the time for this move. I actually see him pushing for it. I see it happening. I see this one being something that can actually happen. As much as it pains me, and I think we'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just look at it objectively, and I don't see a reason why he wouldn't. As much as the only thing people can say is the Premier League record. Is that really enough to keep him here? I don't think so.
I think you've nailed it on the head, because it's the fear of missing out for me. That whole, like you said, that window of opportunity where he could have gone to a Pep Guardiola and proved and had titles. He missed it, and so would that chance ever come again? Now he's got a second wind. He's got a second chance, another bite at the apple. How many times has that happened in your career? Do you know what I mean? So as much as he could make the move to Man United aren't Real Madrid.
Mm-hmm. That's also true, especially right now. He's not guaranteed to challenge for titles and Champions Leagues at United, but it definitely is at Madrid. But that is Harry Kane news. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you think this one has legs, or do you think it's just paper talk? Do you think there's nothing to it? Now with Benzema leaving as well, is that definitely gonna bring that to the fore? Let's move on to Ange Postecoglu. Obviously, yesterday he won the Scottish Cup, which meant he completed the treble for Celtic. Romano is reporting that Tottenham will hold talks with Ange Postecoglu at the beginning of next week. The Athletic are reporting he is now the clear favourite for the Tottenham job after winning the treble with Celtic. But the Evening Standard have said that Celtic are ready to offer Ange Postecoglu a bumper long-term deal in order to try and ward off interest from Tottenham. Postecoglu himself was speaking, obviously, after the cup final win yesterday, and he said that I've appreciated the support I've had from day one. I was a joke, and a lot of people made fun of my appointment at Celtic. The supporters put their collective arms around me, and it was up to me to repay their trust, and I hope I've done that. Obviously, he refused to kind of get drawn into future talk yesterday, saying he didn't want to ruin the day with that kind of talk, and that's what a lot of the media were doing. In terms of Postecoglu, the news is definitely heating up, and usually when it gets to this point, this is the point where he signs a contract. That's what we've usually come accustomed to as a Tottenham fan. Do you think he's going to be the next manager of Tottenham Hotspur?
As a very strong likelihood, but like you said, this is Tottenham Hotspur. Anything's possible. So when he did say, when I watched the post-match interview with him after the Scottish Cup final, after he took the win, he was waving at the fans, etc., spending like trying to take it in as much as he could. He didn't want to lose any moment. And then, like, when it came to the questions, I think he knew it was coming. And I watched the BBC one, and obviously he sidestepped that question very nicely, saying how, you know, he wanted to take that moment in. He wanted to kind of like enjoy the win. He didn't want anything to distract him from that. And then he's talking about how he worked so hard, you know, throughout the season with Celtic. And then he also said about, like he just said, with his family, he's looking to have a vacation on Tuesday. So that made me think, oh, maybe he's not going to sign for Spurs because we need something done quite imminently. And if he goes on a holiday, I know like a lot of things are left up to his agents to kind of mull over and discuss. And then, you know, they probably call him on vacation. But I'd assume that you'd have a one-to-one conversation with our board. But I don't know if that conversations has been had already behind closed doors. And we're just in the dark about it. So that's the reason why I think it may be that with Spurs, we have a possible chance of him coming, because he's done all he can do with Celtic in terms of, you know, domestically. He's done treble, which is a massive achievement. The season before he won the league, he was in the Champions League with them. So a little bit different to what happened with the Feyenoord manager, Slot, with Andy Slot. You know, he hadn't experienced the Champions League with them, so it was new territory. So yeah, I think with Postecoglu, the possibility is that, you know, he's done everything he can with them, and now it's time to get that big move. It's all about opportunity at the end of the day. So I think he's been looking for this big move. Celtic was that kind of stepping stone maybe in his career move, and he wants to now try and test himself against the big boys. I know you can't dismiss the pool of the Premier League, like, for a manager if you're looking to prove yourself. But as I said before, it's happened before, and, you know, I did see reports saying, like, you know, Enrique's waiting. He's waiting in the wings, so that could mean, like, you know, they haven't got back to Spurs yet. Postecoglu's like, you know, just enjoying his moment, doesn't want to talk about it. And the longer it drags on, then Spurs might have to, like, you know, look elsewhere and act upon other decisions.
Go down to our eighth choice manager then, is that what you're saying? In terms of Postecoglu, I think clearly Spurs are looking at him right now. I think because how he fits into their profile, in terms of age, he doesn't really fit, but in terms of a hungry manager looking to prove himself, who'd be happy at Tottenham, who sees Tottenham as like a big move for him, as opposed to maybe someone else who might see Tottenham as a stepping stone. I don't think Postecoglu sees Tottenham like that. He sees Tottenham as his big break, essentially. A manager who plays attacking football, front foot football as well, he will definitely add some excitement back into the way we play. I think it makes sense in that sense, but in terms of a manager that's going to get the fans excited about his appointment, and a manager who is definitely like proven with experience in other leagues, like of similar quality to the Premier League, or we have assurance that his way of playing is definitely going to be successful in the Premier League. I think all that is definitely up in the air, and I understand if people are underwhelmed by his appointment. I think it probably is an underwhelming appointment if it does happen, but I'm willing to give it a chance. I'm not one to start being against the manager before he's had a chance at Tottenham. And I think, you know, on social media, I do think it's gone a bit overboard with hashtag no to Postecoglu kind of trending on social media, which I don't really understand or agree with. So I think he's a character, I think, who will get the fans on side and the players on side. I think the way he speaks, he's very charismatic, and he's very much of a very good man management style. So I'm willing to see how it goes, but I'm just worried that because of the fact that he's definitely not been our first choice, the fact that he doesn't have so much experience at the top level as much as he played the Champions League for Celtic, if things aren't going great, within 6 months, what happens to him if he goes on a bad run second half of the season? Do we have enough in us to stay the course and really back him? Like, do we really have enough trust in him to see him as a project, or are we going to throw him away the first sign of trouble, like we have maybe with Nuno and other managers? So it's a big question mark, but we'll see what happens with him. We'll see this week whether there is legs to his appointment. It does seem to be the front runner, but
I think also as well, sorry to cut you off, Sim. I think the fact that we've got an Australian operations of football in Scott Munn, I think that would make a lot of sense that, Postecoglu would be like one of the candidates that Levy might be sold on, because it's an opportunity to kind of branch ourselves globally in the Asian market, going down to Australia. We've got a pre-season tour down there. So I think the opportunity to kind of grow Spurs and even get like you've seen other teams do it, like have like a second club or just like another club abroad, where we kind of like expand the our networks in terms of we might scout a few players and they play in our feeder club. Do you know what I mean? So, and our Scott Munn's been brought on for a reason. So that might be the reason why Postecoglu has been brought in, to help with that facilitating and scouting network and using his like knowledge of football as well, bringing players left and right. And I did hear we were going through a different type of system in terms of scouting. So when we're looking at a bit similar to what Brighton and Brentford are doing in terms of statistical analytical data, I thought maybe the three marries up, it makes sense. And that's the reason why Levy might have been sold on bringing a Postecoglu. Whether the fans get behind it, the only way I felt fans could get behind it and quickly as well is, like you said before, is the style of football, the attacking football. If we start to have, even if we're losing games, but we kind of go for it and we have some type of consistency where people can identify a style of football and recognize this is the way, the Tottenham way, I think then quickly the fan base will get behind it. And yes, it will be underwhelming for some people, but some people, especially Australian fans, they're really excited about it. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So, and this guy as well worked in the City Group, same as worked in he's in the J League, similar to what Pep was. Pep was in the J League as well. Plays similar systems to Pep, and then also you have to remember that Brighton, before the Zerbi, they wanted Postecoglu. So the fact that they wanted Postecoglu to Brighton, do you know what I mean? Would our nose have been turned up if we went for De Zerbi? Would we be acting the same way if we were linked to De Zerbi before he went to Brighton? So there's always that to consider as well.
And Poch as well. Poch before wasn't exactly the most well-known manager, albeit he did do a good job at Southampton in the Premier League beforehand.
Yeah, he did.
It wasn't exactly like the most popular appointment, shall we say, when he was appointed.
Even Keith Birkinshaw as well. Keith Birkinshaw didn't have a lot of experience as well.
Keith Birkinshaw.
He didn't have a lot, and he did very well. So
yeah, so look, you can't write him off. You definitely can't write him off beforehand, but I mean, it's hard to disagree. It's a bit underwhelming, but let's hopefully give him a chance and hopefully it could be a big success here. Moving on now to Hugo Lloris, and he's had some interesting quotes yesterday about his future, and he says that we have reached an important moment, whether it be for the club or for me, but it's the end of an era. I have a desire for something else. I will carefully study what is possible. However, I haven't forgotten that I have a year left to my contract at Tottenham, and in football, it's always hard to predict what will happen. So we've had now, that is pretty much confirmation from Lloris' side that he doesn't want to continue at Tottenham, it looks like. There was a lot of rumours that Spurs were, happy to let him go and tear up his contract. And that all, we were happy to see him leave this summer. Now we're getting confirmation from Lloris that it looks like he's wants to move on to pastures new, and he wants a new challenge in his last stage of his career. So, where do you think he goes? Do you think back to France? Do you reckon that Saudi Arabia move is still open? Do you reckon Tottenham just cancels his contract and just let him leave on a free?
I think wage bill. We're talking about cutting up contracts before, weren't we? So
yeah,
I think Lloris might be one of them. I think the way he kind of exited was a bit untasteful. It kind of left you with a sour taste, a bad taste in your mouth. The Newcastle game, came off at half time. I've never ever seen a captain do that. So he completely just fell off for Tottenham. So yeah, I reckon a cut in contract, just cut it up, save some wages, because he's on he's over 100 grand minimum, I'd say. So I think it's 110. But yeah, I'd save some money. I think Tottenham will look at him, and Forster's the cheaper of the two. So Forster's there. He's been playing since he's been gone. We're looking at keepers at the moment. So I think that is pretty much a no-brainer. I think that's my opinion. I think that's what will happen.
Yeah, and look, it's a sad day for me anyway that Lloris is, set to leave after such a long time at the club. I don't like that. I understand he's not been great, especially over the last year. He's had a tough time in goal. He's made serious mistakes. I don't like when I see on social media again, people, kind of only remembering the bad times when it comes to Lloris. And I saw someone tweet his quote saying, "Oh, don't let the door hit you on the way out." Just wanting him out of the door without any respect for what he's done for this football club and how he's played over the last decade or so. And I don't like to see that. I, for one, am grateful for Hugo. I think he's been an unbelievable keeper for us for many, many years, underrated for many years as well. And yes, the last year he was pretty bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But I think he's been a great servant for the club, and I think deserves respect as one of the best keepers to ever play for the club, in my opinion. So he'll be sorely missed, and hope his last bit of his career goes well and has a brilliant retirement.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think ever since he signed the contract, renewed his contract, at Tottenham, I think he started to go down a bit. And I think it was 2021 or something like that. He started to fade a little bit, and it always happens. I see so many players sign new contracts, and that's when they start to dip in their performance. It's
they up their game for the new contract, they earn it, and then all of a sudden maybe it's like they're not fighting for something.
Yeah, they're not as hungry anymore. And I think also the fact that we had managers, I think Mourinho had a big impression on him, as well as Conte. And I think, at watching the documentary anyway, when he had a go at Sonny, I think that was the time when he was hungry, he was more alive, and he felt like the club was fighting for something. Because when we did buy him under Redknapp, he was a big deal. He was a massive deal. Remember when he came?
Yeah, 100%. He was already France's number one keeper back then. We signed him. I think it was under AVB. We signed him, but it was a deadline day move.
Yes, it was deadline day.
He was a well sought after keeper for sure.
Yeah. So I just remember the optimism, and he always thought that Spurs could get to that next level. And then I think after that Conte drop off, I think that was it for him. I think there was no way back. And then that hammering of 5 goals in one half in 20 minutes, I think that was the icing on the cake, and there was no way back for him. But yeah, I agree with you, Sam. I think he has been a loyal servant because he's been number one for France for so long. We've had a top goalkeeper, and it's a shame again, we've not been able to win something with him. I mean, if Kane goes as well, that would be a dying shame between the two of them, that we haven't been able to yield a trophy between England's number one and France's number one, So
two captains and two great players. It's a massive shame. But look, thanks for joining me today, Ash. I really appreciate your time. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on anything we have discussed today. We'll see you all very, very soon. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.